Today, I want to welcome Dan Schaefer, the Senior Director at StratoJet, to the Howell Studios podcast, Stories Behind the Brand. Thanks so much, Dan, for being a guest today. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you, Zach?
Doing great, doing great. So, I know you're a very busy man. What has 2025 looked like for you so far with StratoJet?
It's good. It's going well. Last year was kind of up and down. We did well. It was just a lot of things came into the picture that normally don't. But every 4 years, we have some people waiting for what happens after November.
And I know you guys are building a brand new facility in California, correct?
Yeah, we're not building a facility in California. We actually moved to a brand new facility. So it's our third move in 8 years, just expansion reasons. We are building a new facility, a factory facility, though,
And
and
where's that located?
that's in New Delhi, India, and that's where all the big components and everything are assembled and built, and kind of the labor intensive stuff. We then ship all of our printers over to Ontario, California, and that's where we do the final assembly. In other words, all the electronics and the components and so forth. That's where we do all the testing and reviewing of the quality control and so forth before our printers are delivered to our clients.
And for people who don't know who StratoJet is or what you guys do, can you kind of give us a breakdown about the company?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I've been in this industry for over 3 decades, and HP, Xerox, Colorspan back in the day, company that's pretty much started this whole fiasco of large format printing. But the interesting thing was the company was established in 1995, so quite a ways back, and I'd never heard of the company. And the main reason is StratoJet came from a tech end of things rather than a printer box sales company. So they were known in the industry with all the manufacturers as the providers of the next level of technology, the advancements, and so forth. So we sold a lot of technology and software. In fact, today we make more money selling frames for other companies than we do actually selling printers. So we're still heavy in the manufacturing end of things, OEM manufacturing for other companies. So the interesting thing is that after many, many years of providing everybody else with a phenomenal product, we decided to come out with our own because there were a lot of features we wanted to include it into our portfolio that nobody else kind of wanted. Some of them are kind of cost savings, like saving on ink cost, how much ink is used, a new approach to the industry. So that's kind of where we came into the picture and kind of flip flopped how we approach the whole industry through manufacturing, selling, support. Everything is different than everybody else in the industry. And the reason for that is not that it doesn't work the other way, but we find that with today's technology, the internet, and things that we can implement into these devices to make them even more reliable, keep people up and running longer. Everybody wants a good looking printer. There's a lot of them out there. They'll do good jobs and so forth. But it's really that, what happens the 11th hour when your printer goes down, and everything will go down. But it's all about what happens next. So the way we want to keep consistency is to look at it as a business thing, whereas we sell ink. And if these customers aren't printing, we're not making money. So we're kind of in it together, and that's the tip of our iceberg, and that's our focus. So everything that we do, our build, our technology, our support, everything is kind of focused on that nuclei to make sure that that is our hyper focus, and it's a better customer experience.
And I think a huge part about any company is customer service. And knowing a little bit about you guys, I think you guys specialize in that. I know you guys have this part of your company where if the printer goes down, you can fix it, halfway across the country, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, but kind of like the manufacturing industry, like in Detroit, like the automotive industry. They have these giant multi-million dollar robots making cars and so forth. They're all supported via the internet. So they connect to the internet, and there's a team of support. There's a support structure or a team of support people that will continuously enhance, make sure everything is going okay. And if there's an issue, their technician or like our customers can call us, give us a password. Our people have 100% visibility through all of our printers. So most issues today are really software related. Uh, it's about 95, maybe 96% of everything that happens is kind of some weird software glitch or whatever that kind of stops you in your tracks. And the problem has been in the past that back in the day when these printers were first being built, 25 years ago, nothing's really changed that much. Components have gotten better, faster, more reliable. So things have progressed, but the support of those components are still the old school way. So when you take a motherboard and burn information into it, put it into a printer, and that's how everybody does it. We don't. We load everything on a PC and then it connects to the internet. But the problem with that is you're basically changing your printer into a giant computer, which requires somebody to stand in front of it and try to figure out what's going on. Sometimes you have to wait for people and what have you. Well, that whole process can be done right over the phone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we actually offer that for free of charge to all of our clients as long as they own their printers. And these printers last 8, 10 years, especially like the flatbeds and stuff like that. So a lot of times people have to struggle with service contracts in the thousands and thousands of dollars just to make sure that they don't get blindsided with multiple visits and things like that. Well, with this, we can alleviate that hands-on work with the operator, get them up and running the fastest way possible. We can do that mainly remote. Even if it's a hardware issue, we can identify that problem right on that phone call, and we dispatch our tech with the part, knowing that we're going in within a day or two to the site, actually fixing the printer, not just returning a phone call. So what we're trying to do is make that area where it's very difficult to save time in anymore, which is production, operation, and support, is usually a lengthy thing. So it doesn't matter how fast your printer is. If it's down, it does, it's irrelevant. So it's also about keeping you up and running. So that's our approach.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be a huge selling point for you once someone hears that. Like
Yeah.
if they have an issue, you can just hop on a phone call. They can look at it from their own computer and fix the problem.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that this way of approaching the industry, or this, where we are, in the couple $100,000 range, plus or minus, whatever. People don't know what this is. They've never heard of this because it's kind of commonplace right now with equipment that's $1 million plus, and like I said, the robotics industry and manufacturing and so forth. And it's very expensive. They charge $12,000 to $29,000 a year per device to have this kind of service, and obviously much more complex. Ours is a printer, and it's simplistic in the sense of, there's your basic mechanical, and then of course our software that we've developed for the printer is ours, so we know our way around. It's not third party or fourth party. So everybody that you talk to, everybody that touches our product, everybody that develops, even from concept all the way to finished product, are StratoJet employees. And the reason why that's very important is we, there's other ways to do it, but we find that the inconsistency plays directly into the consistency of the printer itself. And so if we can remove any kind of hiccups, put in the best components that we can, kind of take the support structure that we have to invest a lot of money into to getting people all over the place and so forth, invest it into the actual hardware for the printer, put better components in, higher end, And being a boutique manufacturer, we can change that up as we're going. So if a different part comes along that performs better, gives us better results, we can put it in. We don't have to wait 8 years because we have a parts contract with a large company to get better pricing. And that's kind of goes into the three different types of manufacturers, which is us. We're a boutique manufacturer. These are hand built printers, developed, tested, and completely solid. And we had to have them very solid in order to be able to support them remotely. The other is then you have the big box companies, which are like the HPs and the Canons and so forth, and they have their way of approaching the industry. And then I call them the sticker company, which is becoming a bigger part of the pie, probably 75% or so, maybe more. And again, us being a boutique manufacturer and actually being the manufacturer, it allows us to be a lot more innovative. So we can develop software strategies to save money on ink costs, and we can implement them in our printers because we also OEM everything that we put in our printers. So the heads are OEM'd for us, the inks are OEM'd, and that gives us a lot more control because basically the ink manufacturers control how you build your printer. They need certain wavelengths and pressure and all kinds of different things that have to happen inside the printer for their inks to work properly. Well, that's too limiting for us. We have added 13 new colors. So most printers out there, of course, they have your CMYK. They all have CMYK. And a lot of these, for instance, UV printers, they'll have white, they'll have clear. They might even have light cyan, light magenta. We've actually added a grayscale black. We've added a red, a green, a violet, an orange. You can even run primer through our printer. And the whole idea was to give everybody as many tools and a great ability as possible. So there's obviously some people that will never use anything like that. And CMYK is in our printers about 20 to 25% higher Pantone and True Match results than anybody else because of the intelligence between the RIP and the print drivers that we've developed. So you're getting better colors just out of CMYK. The other thing is that if you wanted to add something later, a year down the road, maybe you wanted to enhance the production, go from 1 times CMYK all the way up to 3 times CMYK just by adding some more heads, you can do that at a later date. So you're not locked in. So the product can pick your size, and then the product will grow with you, or and also depending on where your business goes in a year or two or whatever, at least you can offer some other clients other options with this device that you can't normally. The only other printer that I really know that has a really good handle on the color with orange and green only is Swiss Q, which is a really nice Swiss made piece of equipment, but $700,000 plus or minus 50 or something like that. So it's a different animal, but we want people to have the tools necessary at an affordable cost. So we've removed a lot of elements in between. So we're not paying 9, 10, 14 different entities before it arrives to your doorstep. So for us, it allows us to pass on that savings, but you're not sacrificing. In fact, our price points with our printers, they should be easily 30 to probably 50% higher compared to the equivalent that's out there right now as far as build quality, components, technology. Our software is way beyond anybody. Since we've been doing it so long, and we've been able to offer a lot of very, very cool things that are in our printer driver software that you can do in single step operations, like Braille and ADS is a big hot button right now, and for us it's literally a 2, 3, 4 piece step to have the finished product. You're not having to create all these different files because you're layering inks and stuff like that. It's all automated. So a lot of again, time saving things. The only time you're making money is when the ink is correctly going onto the substrate. everything leading up to that point is overhead. So we need to shorten that path to getting that ink to correctly hit that media. And that's where I think today's most of the savings are coming from is soft dollars. Your operator's time per hour, this, that, all the hands on and so forth. So we can minimize that. Your return on investment is going to be that much quicker.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear that you're giving the customer the option to upgrade so they're not stuck with this printer, 5, 10 years down the road. If they want to improve it or add to it, that's possible through you guys. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when you go to a trade show, a lot of people don't show all the bells and whistles and so forth, and so we haven't even shown off our oranges and greens and all this other funky stuff that we have going on. We just do CMYK, so that's going to be changing because we're looking to at ISA actually. We're going to be putting a bunch of colors in there. And the funny thing is, the last time I saw you was in Print United, I think it was Printing United, yeah, in Vegas, and we had an entire tower built highlighting our colors of orange, red, violet, and green, and we printed it all, and everybody was so amazed what those extra colors could do. But the funny fact is that was all printed on our CMYK. That wasn't even using orange, red, violet, or green. And people are just amazed by the colors and the strong reds that we have. And we're kind of known for that. There's a lot of good printers options out there, but if you're looking for quality and more color and so forth, that's generally when people lean towards StratoJet.
So I wanted to take a step backwards and kind of talk about your career path into the printing industry. Like what drew you into that world? Because you could have done anything you wanted.
I needed a job.
Well, what made you stay so long then?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny. When you're young, dust is settling, you're trying to find your way in life and so forth. And I've been successful in things that I'd done in the past and so forth. And actually, a friend told me about this company that was doing really cool electronic stuff, and I had no idea. I mean, remember, this is all before cell phones and the internet and all this kind of stuff. And so this is back in 1989, all right? And so there was really nothing that had been developed that would do a one-off print. And so our company at the time developed a printer out of a plotter, like an old NCAD plotter. And we put some brains to it so we could do a 36-inch, 300 DPI, 3x4 print or whatever it was. Took about 5 hours to print, right? But it was still cool, right? So that's kind of what started this whole fiasco. And so I got kind of hooked with it because I like the people in this industry. I like the coolness of the industry because you can create something that everybody can enjoy and see, and it's almost like a commodity because everybody is always needing signage. Everybody needs, advertising, point of purchase, this, that is, whatever it is. And of course, a lot of that stuff is kind of fused in a sense because you've got dye sublimation, you've got screen printing, you've got offset printing, you've got digital printing. All these people now are kind of at the same trade shows. So there's a lot of crossover there because people understand that they need to diversify. They want to add something different. An offset printer might want to add a digital room and be able to offer signage and things of that nature. But anyways, getting way back, that's kind of what got me hooked was this cool cutting edge and things were changing quickly and new innovation. And so I was with actually it was called ColorSpan. It was LaserMaster, then something else, and then it was ColorSpan. And then we kept launching new printers, and I was always the one that would take the new printers and go to market for the company and get these things out there in the market, all these different fine art stuff to photographic printers to sign printers to everything. And of course, then after, I don't know, about 10, 11 years, I kind of burnt out. I doing, I was doing the same thing over and over and over again for about 11 years, and I decided I needed to change. And that was right at the dot com time. So I went into the dot com thing, the whole wild time there was, like spend everybody's money, kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so I did that for a while, and then they brought me back to launch a new printer, which was kind of interesting. The whole thing that started this whole UV printing was Color Span out in Minnetonka, Minnesota, and they brought me in and said, "Would you be interested in launching this, coming back to our company and helping us launch and everything?" But it was like a covert op situation when they took me in there. I had to sign an NDA and all these documents and all this stuff. They took me into this huge room that was pitch black. And then they turned on the lights and there was only a spotlight in the middle of this giant room
That's cool.
on this printer. It was like it was out of a KGB movie or something,
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say they were gonna waterboard you or something.
Yeah, that was kind of getting nervous, man. It's, dark room. But so I looked at this thing. I'm like, it's like a giant toaster. It's got tables that pop up, and it's built like. But it was so cool and so different and so innovative. It was the first thing to print right to rigid. Now there were some big, huge pieces of equipment that could do this, but this was affordable. This was like 60 grand. So it was the first time it was actually affordable for the everyday sign shop or whatever to actually afford to be able to do this. And that's kind of what started that whole UV thing. Now, fast forward a few years, they were acquired by Hewlett Packard, and that's how HP got into latex and HP. They bought out ColorSpan. That's who developed it initially. So, anyways, fast forward. So there was a stint with Xerox that I did launching their new printer. It worked with HP for a long time, and in fact, I got out of it for a while. I got actually sucked back into this industry like 3 times. Started my own company, my own partnerships, completely unrelated to any of this. But I always loved this industry. I always liked dealing with the people. I always loved what it did, the cool things that it could print. So it's kind of in my DNA because I've been doing that longer than anything, right? So then about 8 years ago, while running my company, having a couple partnerships and all that kind of stuff, a buddy of mine calls me up and says, "Hey, you got to check these guys out." Right then I knew. I'm like, "Oh, you're sucking me back in again, aren't you?" And he goes, "You just got to check these guys out." And I'd never heard of them, like we talked about before. Been in this industry and competing with a lot of different companies and brands and so forth. Never heard of them. So went out there to the headquarters in California and spent a few days. And the two things that I cared about was number one, business ethics, because that was one of my concerns and one of my leavings of, walking away from things, doing better things with my life than sacrificing my name in some cases. So that was important to me. Where are their heads at? How do they approach and deal with their clients? The other thing is I didn't want to sell another POS. Just I wanted to be involved with something that was solid. And the one thing that I did see in this was the technology that they had. They were a 100% tech company, and they had technology I've not seen before. And I'm quite versed with this stuff, and I've been on all sides of printers, running them and selling them to managing them or whatever. And they really set themselves apart from the rest of the industry. And that got my juices flowing again, going, "Oh, here I go again." So I pretty much took on the challenge. And the challenge was going from a tech company to a sales company and trying to identify, like you were saying, those unique buying criteria. What separates my four-door sedan from his or her four-door sedan? And that's try to position yourself, trying to find out what's unique to your printers. And that took a while, and but it has been phenomenal. I would never want to do it the other way around. Do a sales company and then try to figure out the tech later. You just burn all kinds of bridges. And a lot of companies do that out there. Um, you, we've all been on that receiving end, and so it was a mission of passion, and I think that if you're passionate about something, that is your fuel to keep you going. Because if you don't have passion about something, anything, it's very difficult to keep that pace and keep going, even though you get knocked down, you go off the rails, things happen. That's life. Nothing's 100% no matter where you go. But if you can figure it out and you can identify that there's the intelligence and the tools and the wanting to do the right thing in place, it makes it feeds your passion because you see results, you know. And that's what I really enjoy. And it's kind of the nice thing. I don't like to be a number. I like to see the effect that I have to our bottom line and to the success and our clients. And when I can have these conversations and people come to our trade show all the time, no matter where we go, and our owners come into our booth and they all say, this is the best decision we've ever made. They hang out in the booth, they talk to other people that are there. There's nothing better for me as a person to be able to have a potential client or customer speak to an existing customer and actually getting it from the horse's mouth. I encourage it. I hand out names and numbers and say, go ahead. In the past, I always had to call ahead to people. That was a terrifying question for somebody to ask me. Well, I'd like to speak to two people. I have to call people and, hey, is your printer running? Are you suing us? Are you happy? And it'd take a day for me to find two people that I could at least hope that, it would go the right way. That's gone. And it's kind of weird because my phone always used to be flying off the handle all the time, just blowing up. And it just doesn't happen anymore. Our products are so well made; they're good. I'm not saying we don't have issues and things don't go down. I mean, everybody does, but what we've added to that part of the uncertainty and how we've decided and researched what we thought was going to be the best came directly from the marketplace feedback from actually printers being used. And so that's really important to really listen to your customer base and listen to your employees.
Yeah, and I think just hearing you talk about what you just said, it just shows how much you care, and the company you work for cares, and you could tell your passion for the industry just like shines through that story. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people get burnt out in whatever they're doing in life. But if you actually care and love what's your job, I think it doesn't feel like a job. And just hearing you talk about that, speaks volumes.
And what I mean, I can tell you love what you do, and just interacting with you, and that's kind of one of the things that uh, we've worked with you, to do some videos and so forth for us, and it was based on seeing you guys work and how you interacted with each other, and the just the type of people that you are. Anybody can sell a printer, anybody can shoot a video, but there's more to it than just talent. There's got to be a soul to it, and people pick up on that, and I think that's why people hang out in our booth maybe longer than they should sometimes. but but it's fine. But yeah, it comes across, and it is infectious. When you have a positive attitude and when you feel good about your stuff, people really they feel that, and they want to be part of it. And so internally, we have a good time. We laugh. We make fun of each other. We have a real human interaction with each other, which is it's kind of unique sometimes in this marketplace.
Strangely enough, the printing industry kind of lends itself to that. I don't know what it is about that, but the people in it are very genuine. I never thought I would be in this industry 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we have kind of, you know, built
Great.
a path into it. And we love every second of it. We love going to trade shows. We love going into print shops. We love meeting people in the printing world. And there's probably no other place I'd rather be or working in than the printing world, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, you don't you wouldn't think, because it's really not that complex. When you think about it, there's not a lot of layers to this, of complexity to this industry. You want an offset press? Well, everybody knows what an offset press is. You want a printer? Everybody's got one on their desk. Ours is just bigger. So I mean, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny because being in this industry for 3 decades or whatever is it's amazing how many people I have, and it's not just companies I work for, but competitors, people in the industry or at the trade shows and stuff. We're constantly crossing paths with each other. We know each other, and everybody's very nice to each other. They're empathetic. You're talking the same language, and it's fun. I think you're right there. I've been to other uh, things and shows and events and stuff like that because I'm doing other things. Um, they're not quite that down to earth, I guess, and it's kind of neat working and talking and interacting and socializing and becoming friends with people that have both feet on the ground. It's kind of refreshing. It doesn't have to be complicated, you know.
Jumping into trade shows, because we kind of discussed that a little bit. I know you do a fair share amount of them.
Hmm.
Um, do you love them? Do you hate them?
Love them.
Love them.
Absolutely love them. I know you either hate them or love them.
I
It's
love
like
them.
cilantro. I love them too. It's like cilantro. You know that spice. The kind of funny thing with cilantro is, you either love it or hate it, right? And some people think it tastes like soap or something like that. And I found an interesting thing is that you are actually, through your DNA, either going to like cilantro or not like cilantro. It has nothing to do with learned behavior or anything like that. Some people will taste a horrible taste, and some people. I didn't know. I found this fact out like a year ago or something like that, and I was like, "What a good example!" Because you could be in the exact same thing, doing the exact same thing, and some person's miserable, and the other people are hyper ecstatic, right? But I see more hyper ecstatic in this industry because it is it's run by good people and people that really are like you said, down to earth. So I agree with you. It's fun.
I love trade shows. I look forward to them, especially when they're in Vegas and Orlando. I mean, how can you beat that? But when we hire someone new on, it's difficult to explain to them when we're taking them to a trade show because it's like you can't explain it until you get there. You walk in, you kind of smell the printers, the inks, and maybe it's like
Yeah.
cilantro. Maybe someone won't like that, but I personally I
Yeah.
look forward to that. And then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
people you meet at the show, it's fun because you get to go out to dinner with them. You go out and get a drink. You actually build
Right.
friendships from these trade shows. So I personally enjoy the printing trade shows that we attend.
Yeah. I like the energy for myself because I'm actually in front of
Hmm.
people, by the hundreds. And I feed off the energy, and I really love to interact, and I'm really proud of our products. So it's kind of like showing kids, that you're pulling out your wallet and showing your photos of your kids or something
Yeah.
like, you know, you know, so it gives it a spice at the trade show that you won't feel anywhere else. I mean, you can interact with people. You can have people come to your office, and it becomes an office visit. It's kind of. But a trade show, there's all this hoopla going on. There's all these people that are on that same level of you know energy. It's really fun. It's really fun. Yeah, I know a lot of people that hate trade shows, That's kind of what I was getting with the cilantro thing is like they either hate it or they love it, you know? And I think it's in your DNA. Huh?
Get those people out of here.
No, no, some people just don't, and some people just are more less, outgoing than others, and so it's more difficult to some people.
You're obviously a people person. I've seen you interacting at shows. Is there like a specific customer success story that you have in mind that like you introduced them to a new printer or you kind of solved one of their problems with a StratoJet printer that they were just kind of blown away and were like very like thankful?
Like pretty much everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, because what you have is you have a lot of people that have either been in the industry for a long time and they've already had, let's say, a flatbed for years and they want to get a new one. And they have experience with the company, the product, and running the thing. And so now you fast forward 10 years. Of course, everything's going to be better, right? So now they have an alternative to the sticker companies and the big box companies are the same o that they had for the last 10 years. Now they can get a product that actually gives them a lot of advantages, 5 to 8 years ahead of everybody else out there. I mean, nobody connects to the internet. We can park our white ink. That's our procedure to take white ink out of the line because you don't want to burn out your head. You can't leave it sitting in there for days, right? For us, you hit a button and it's like a 20-30 second procedure and it's done.
Wow.
So you just park it. When you need it again, you just reverse that both on the clear and the white. Nobody's got that. None of our printers purge 24 hours a day. So when you go home on Friday night, you literally turn our printer off. You come in on Monday, it takes like 20 seconds to get ready to print. You do your little jet map like everybody else would, and you're off and running. Again, it's about saving money. So on our liter of ink bottles, we're getting over 99% yield out of that bottle, where the rest of the industry is at 80 to 82%. And it's just how the printers have been developed. Like I said, the last 25 years, it really hasn't changed. So a lot of the features you'll find in our printer, you will not find anywhere else. And there's a lot of them. As a sales company, if you have a 2 or 3 point unique buying criteria or selling criteria, you're doing pretty good because you've got 2-3 solid things you can separate yourself from the pack, right? We have dozens. Some of them we won't talk about because it just goes over people's heads because it's more technically. The techs will understand what we are doing. Obviously, the dialing in, the remote support, everybody gets it. And it's kind of funny when people have been in this industry a long time and we offer them something that's so far advanced, they kind of scratch their head and like, why would I connect to the internet? And you tell them, well, this is why. You can see the light bulb come on. It's you can see it in their face. They're like, holy moly! How many times have I been, my alternator belt and my car goes out when I'm in the middle of the forest in the middle of the night on the weekend, right? It doesn't blow out when you're pulling into the dealership, right? So it's always the worst case scenario when something happens. Obviously, you don't feel good about it, and somebody's going to reap the wrath
Right.
of the
Yeah.
customer. Nobody's happy about it. Neither are we. So when we can turn these frowns upside down by getting people up and running at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, where they won't get a call back till Tuesday or Wednesday, and we can actually get them up and running in 20 minutes, we've saved them and their client for that job that needs to be done by Monday.
A printer goes down, that's a lot of money out the door. So being able to have the problem, addressed and fixed that quickly is a game changer.
Absolutely. The other interesting thing, and it's really, I think it's internal in a lot of companies as far as how they train their salespeople or who they talk about, who the people are, or what have you, whatever. I'm not pointing fingers, but one of the things that I always find interesting is to talk to people, salespeople specifically, that actually have experience. I've interviewed, talked to, and worked with a lot of salespeople over the years, and we're always changing, reinventing. Like I said, because we're a boutique manufacturer, everything, it's not like we come out with a new printer every 5 years or something like that. We actually come out with new printers and also take other printers and take them to the next level, add new technology. So there's constantly something. Like I told you about all these other colors, these other 13 colors. People can still add that technology, even printers they bought 8 years ago. So it's not like they're left in the dark. And so that's a nice thing. We've added just recently, well, yeah, just recently a new printer called the Jaguar, which is a hybrid printer. And the main reason we designed it is we can get it through a 43-inch door. So it will do rigid and roll to roll at the same time. And that we developed for probably going on 4 years. And we ran it through its ringer, and it's a really great printer. We did kind of a soft launch in Vegas that last time, and we're going to do a full launch here at I think in ISA or maybe Printing United for this year. Anyways, that's a brand new printer that has a lot of potential, especially for people that have square foot issues or don't have a door big enough. They can still do rigid printing. It also has a roll to roll option on it too that can print up to 6 feet wide too. So you can get a UV roll to roll and rigid flatbed printer in the same printer. We also are one of 3 manufacturers that have a 16.5 foot wide roll to roll UV printer, the super wide or industrial printers. And that's been doing quite well. That printer is just under 3, which I think the next one out there is probably 600,000 or 700,000. So again, being the manufacturer and developer of the chassis gives us a great upper hand to deliver a comparable piece of equipment at a more reasonable price point. But yeah, as a company, we're always reinventing ourselves. We always want to make sure that what we do have is rock solid. So we don't want to step too far out of the things we know that work very well and consistently, because really that's what everybody wants to buy. They want to, everybody's got their nice, pretty output, and here's the printer and all that kind of stuff. All they want is a printer that just keeps truckling along, just keeps producing the same thing for year after year. It's consistent. You're not all over the place with color and quality or reliability. And that's the focus. And we did a whole research internally on what we have in place now. And all of our flatbeds, we get about a quarter of a visit a year. That calculates to 1 visit every 4 years from a technician. Now, that's about 90% lower than the standard in the industry. Yeah. So, and then it just has to do with, well, we spent a lot of money on the front end. So, but we just shifted it from having to have a tech go out every other month or something like that. Now we actually have a more reliable printer and a better customer experience.
Where do you see StratoJet in the next 5 years? What's the future hold for them?
Well, one of the things I did want to point out is that, we've been around since 95. We'll be around till 95, So we've got a long, nice, fun road ahead of us with new cool stuff coming out. And as a company that develops and also custom builds, we have and can build custom to your needs. If your printer needs to go 30 inches high, we can do that. If you need a special kind of ink, we can develop that. We have the capability of R&Ding this and coming to fruition. And so we've got a lot of really interesting printers out there, not just your standard catalog stuff. We've got a printer that's, I forget the exact dimensions. It's like 10 foot by like 16 foot or something like that, flatbed printer. I haven't seen it, but I've seen photos of it, and it's insane. So that's an exciting thing that will always be there. So it will continue. In the past 8 years, our company has grown close to 300%. And so our plan is, and that was kind of the change of the direction that the company was going, and then just basically dialing it in and getting it more laser focused. And it was an immediate response to our bottom line as far as what we were doing, what we're focusing on. We actually got rid of some stuff that we didn't really do much with and so forth, kind of antiquated. And so we've dialed it down, shoved all of our attention and money and research and everything into the core products, and to make sure that they're solid. And so we're going to continuously do that. And our growth, we expect to have at least another 50 to maybe 100% growth in the next 2 to 3 years, I would say. So things are looking good. And this is just, I'm talking just the North American market. Of course, we do business all over the world, and we actually have printers specific for different markets and different needs, different people. Of course, we do die subs, but we don't do it. Die sub isn't a huge thing here. We know what it is, but it's completely saturated in Europe. For instance, they've been doing cloth banners for a long, long time, and we're still in the midst of vinyls. But when you go to a trade show, and you probably saw this when you look around, it's like 90% of everything that's hanging, the divider walls, everything, it's all fabrics, right? So we have two options. We can do the dye sub transfer, whatever, or you can use our UV 10-foot wide or 16.5-foot wide printer to print it with the UV ink, and they have no pinch rollers. So the problem with pinch rollers is it crushes the media if it's a softer fabric, and if you backlight it, it'll look like banding. You go to the airport or stadiums, you have these giant 10-foot by 50-foot backlit signs. You can't have pinch rollers with that stuff. And so we developed that, yeah. And so that's gone. So we've actually launched one, two, three, four new printers in the past about a year and a half, and they are all quite advanced and far ahead of anything that we've seen out there, and that they're available today. So whatever you see today that we have in our catalog for sale, it's a good 5 to 8 years in technology ahead of the rest of the industry. So whatever we come out with in the next whatever few months, it will be that plus more, because things get more complex. You've got AI going on, you've got this stuff going on. So all these new things that can be added to making using a printer more fun.
And for anyone listening that wants to get more information on a StratoJet printer, where can they get that? What's the website? Who can they reach out to?
I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody if they're interested in finding out about it. The way we operate is we want to make sure we have a perfect fit for your company. So there's going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be a lot of making sure we understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And we'll be the first one to tell you that this isn't the right printer, because we don't want to, we don't need it. You don't need it. So that's a big thing. You can go to StratoJetUSA.com. We have all of our printers up there. There's electronic brochures. There's detailed information. Or you can call me personally if you want to and talk about this or anything relating to this industry. I have a couple bag full of useless information that I can share. My number is 562-287-2841. And I don't have a problem talking to anybody and having a good business discussion. We don't sell printers. We sell business solutions.
That's awesome to hear, Dan. And, I'm glad we had this conversation, because it's exciting to hear your passion, the quality of product you're putting out. And for anyone looking to talk to you, I know you're going to be at ISA in April. So that's a great place to get more information on StratoJet. So I want to thank you
All right.
once more, Dan, for being a guest on the Howell Studios podcast, Stories Behind the Brand. And once again, looking forward to seeing you in Vegas and seeing what StratoJet has to offer.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks for having me on. I wish you all the best with Howell Productions, and what you guys are doing is great stuff. I follow you. I see you on LinkedIn all the time and see the new podcast. I think it's a great idea, and I wish you guys the best, very best success with this and all your other endeavors. And yes, we will definitely see you at some trade show somewhere.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Zach.